There's been a lot of talk about transit in the city of Toronto recently, and one of the main topics is streetcars. In a city that was for so long identified with the Toronto Transit Commission's red rockets, it seems as though streetcars may not be so highly thought of anymore. Many believe they belong to another time, that the city, the last in the province of Ontario with streetcars, has outgrown its need for them. That may be true or not, but there can be no denying the long history of streetcars in Toronto and across the province. And there are those who recognize and preserve that history in a place where streetcars are desired. This is TTC streetcar number 2894, which first went into service in 1923. It's traveling on the 2 kilometers of track run by the Halton County Radial Railway. From its inception in the 1950s, this volunteer-run railway has worked to preserve, restore, operate, and display electric railway-related objects and interpret their historic significance. And since 1972, that's involved operating its own railway track and overseeing a collection of rolling stock and other items that include streetcars, subway cars, maintenance vehicles, buses, and even the historic Rockwood, Ontario train station. Let's go back to number 2894 because it's the stories behind these cars that are a major part of what makes the railway so interesting. As previously mentioned, this car was built in 1923 and it remained in service until 1963 as the last streetcar on the DuPont line. After it was retired, it was sold, stored in a barn in Barrie, Ontario, and later repurchased by the TTC to be used as a historic sightseeing trolley for tourists in Toronto until the mid-1980s. Today, after a careful restoration, and more than 90 years after it first saw service, 2894 continues to be one of the regular cars on the railway, just like the approaching number 327. At first glance, this car looks older than 2894, but appearances can be deceiving because this car is both older and newer than it appears. The original 327 saw about 15 years of use in Toronto until it was sent to the scrapyard in 1905 when the use of open streetcars fell out of favor. But in 1933, the TTC built a replica of 327 in preparation for the city's centennial. That's the trolley in operation at the museum today. Mostly. Because when the museum took possession of the replica in the late 1960s, it needed extensive restoration, which included several hard-to-find parts. Remarkably, they found the perfect parts for it in the scrapyard, where the original 327 had spent the last 60-odd years. They were actually able to reclaim the original parts to finish the restoration, making the railway's 327 a hybrid of old and new. Another car in regular use on the railway is number 8. From 1915 until 1961, this ornate car transported picnickers and swimmers between London, Ontario and Port Stanley. Because of its longer trips, this car was better equipped than most and includes a very efficiently designed and unique washroom. And one last story. This is M6 from the old Lake Erie and Northern Railway. This maintenance vehicle was originally built as a 1934 Ford pickup. But somewhere along the line, that changed. It was adapted for use as a service vehicle that could travel the rails. It was fitted with a crew cab and a ladder for line work and remained in use until 1962. The railway is operated by the Ontario Electric Railway Historical Association, which bought its first streetcar, TTC 1326, in 1954 and has continued to build its collection ever since. The association purchased land that was part of the former Toronto Suburban Railway in Nassagaweya Township, put down new tracks, and now opens the collection to the public from spring to fall. Being able to ride on these streetcars and learn more about them, it's easy to understand why this mode of transportation is still special to so many. And no matter what the future is for streetcars in the province, it's reassuring to know they will continue to run at the Halton County Radial Railway.